Let me tell you something about heroes. They ain't like you and me. Look at Griffey. The way he taps the spikes and grows the tee, punches the glove and flips the lid, sighs the hat, eats the dirt, and twirls the lumber, warms it up and works the crowd. The way he holds the pole, slams the wall, anticipates, and always thanks his mother. Let me tell you about guys like him. They ain't just playing stick.
This is Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. with reality bat for infinite swings. It's only on N64, only on Nintendo Sports.
Let me tell you something about heroes. They're no different from you and me. But you couldn't tell me that in 1998, because I was convinced that Ken Griffey Jr. was from another planet. He made a hard game look effortless. I grew up in the Eastern Mountains, 2,000 and change miles outside the Seattle Mariners market. Not really in any major league market, to be honest, 6-hour drive from the closest major league team. And this was well before the ability to stream games on the internet, so in theory, if anyone was going to miss out on the growing legend of Junior, it should have been me. But literally every kid wanted to be like Junior. Had to have his signature Nike Swingman shoes, had to have the video games, had to eat honey frosted Wheaties, had to eat the Ken Griffey Jr. candy bar, even though Griffey was allergic to chocolate. Now that was a weird one. Had to drink Pepsi because Griffey said so, had to eat Pizza Hut because Griffey said so. You make it through the commercial break, Griffey was on Fresh Prince. Griffey was on The Simpsons. He even ran for president in '96 with the Mariner Moose as his running mate and George Clinton as his campaign manager, promising to bring back games of pepper to every baseball field. He was a full-blown pop culture icon, but in his case, he was worth every bit of the hype. Ken Griffey Sr., his dad, played Major League Baseball for the Cincinnati Reds on the dominant team of the 1970s known as the Big Red Machine. The team featured Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Dave Concepcion, a top-to-bottom lineup of legends. Griffey Sr. was a gritty blue-collar player from the steel town of Denora, Pennsylvania, who grinded in the minors for half a decade before his chance with the Reds. Alternatively, Junior's path to the big leagues, well, we hadn't seen anything quite like that before. In his time at Archbishop Moeller High School in Cincinnati, Junior batted .478 with 17 home runs. The amount of scouts at these games became a spectacle, as it would often outnumber the total of fans. His coach, Mike Cameron, recalled one instance where all of their pitching had been depleted in a set of 5 games in 5 straight days, where Junior was asked to come in from center field and lock up the game on the mound. He sprinted in, got some quick outs, and not once did his trademark smile leave his face. This anecdote speaks to not only how natural the game of baseball came to him, but how much he loved the game and his teammates. True to the pattern of most otherworldly athletes, Junior was a multiple sports star. He also played football at Moeller as a wide receiver, and was good enough to see offers from several Big Ten schools, but baseball seemed to be the obvious choice. Seeing Ken Griffey Jr. high point a football over a defensive back had to feel like a sneak peek at some of the grabs he'd eventually make over the wall in center field in his baseball career. Griffey was the first overall pick of the 1987 Major League Baseball draft, selected by the Seattle Mariners, who had largely failed to hit a stride throughout the 80s. Just 9 days later, with a $160 signing bonus in hand, he packed his bags for the Kingdome for a workout and then headed 100 miles north to Bellingham, Washington, to start his career with the Bellingham Mariners, a short-season team playing in the Northwest League. 2 games into his career in Everett, Washington, Griffey recorded his first home run, an opposite field shot off of Gil Heredia, who would also go on to play in the majors. To this day, there's a plaque on the sidewalk at Everett Memorial Stadium where it landed. These flashes of brilliance were abundant, and with the way he played like a big leaguer, sometimes it was hard for folks to comprehend that he was just a 17-year-old kid. Griffey's manager in Bellingham, Rick Sweet, recalled one instance where Junior was late to his mandatory pregame warm-up with his team, opting to talk to a couple girls instead. Sweet practiced a little tough love and scratched his name out of the lineup. Griffey was devastated, with tears in his eyes. It's said that Griffey can still remember the 2 girls' names, sign of a true life lesson learned. His line after his first season in 54 games, he batted .313 with 14 home runs and 40 RBIs. In January of 1988, the offseason between his first and second minor league season, Ken Griffey Jr. felt the pressure of the spotlight. He was back home in Ohio, depressed, keeping late hours, and facing a strained relationship with his father. One night, Jr. emptied a large bottle of aspirin and swallowed them, despite the efforts of his then-girlfriend to stop him. He got in his car and threw up. The contents was blue, which was alarming to everyone. He was rushed to the hospital and placed in intensive care. Scared to death and angry, Ken Sr. showed up and got into an argument with Jr. Jr. ripped the IV out of his arm just to get his dad to stop yelling. Jr. cited issues from the past season in Bellingham that caused his negative headspace, notably the use of hate speech and racial slurs by relatives of a team staff member. It's no good. He stated he felt like he was constantly being yelled at by his coaches and his father. In these dark times, Jr. just wanted his greatest ally by his side, his dad. Griffey made a decision that could have deprived him from a Hall of Fame career. He'd have been reduced to nothing more than a melancholy footnote on the career of Ken Griffey Sr. You and I would have never experienced his greatness, but let me tell you something about heroes. They're no different from you and me. They make mistakes. It was years before Griffey would speak out about this, given the stigmas of suicide, but he believed his story, if delivered transparently, could really help others. The 1988 season provided Jr. with a much-needed change of scenery, starting the season with the Single-A advanced San Bernardino Spirit. He absolutely mashed the baseball. .338 average, 11 home runs, 42 RBIs. He got a late-season promotion to the Double-A Vermont Mariners, where he kept up his blistering pace through the final 17 games of the season. In '89, Jr. got the invite to spring training, and was so phenomenal that he was undeniable for a major league roster spot. In his very first at-bat in the Seattle Kingdome, he hit his first major league home run. Ken Griffey Jr. had arrived. In 1990, Ken Griffey Sr. signed with the Mariners. This was the first time a father and son duo had ever played on the same Major League Baseball team. Jr., aged 20, and Sr., age 40, went down in history as the only father and son to hit back-to-back home runs in a game. A definite top 5 moment in baseball history, in my opinion. It was clear they had reconciled. The game they had butted heads over ultimately brought peace to their relationship. As you're probably aware, Jr. went on to have an insane career. He was a 13-time All-Star, 10 in a row from 1990 to 2000, a 10-time Gold Glove, 7-time Silver Slugger, 1997 AL MVP. He banged a homer off the warehouse in Baltimore. Insane. You name it, Griffey did it. Griffey was able to leverage a trade back home to Cincinnati in 2000, where he wore number 30 to honor Ken Griffey Sr. A couple years later, he hit his 500th home run on Father's Day with his dad in attendance. His years with the Reds, despite being wildly symbolic, were kind of a letdown because of compounding injuries that would result in a lot of missed time. Jr. would spend a year with the White Sox, then bounce back to Seattle in 2009. 2010 saw him retire mid-season. In 2016, Ken Griffey Jr. would be elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame with a record 99.32% of the vote on his first ballot. Griffey's legacy is mounted on the walls in Cooperstown and at Safeco Field in Seattle, at Joe Martin Field in Bellingham, and at Moeller High School in Cincinnati. Immortal. But let me tell you something about heroes. They're no different from you and me.